Taiwan is bursting with heaps of fun places to explore. Join me, Amber Hatfield, as I hit up travel hotspots, soak up some culture, and hunt down hidden gems. Let's go! Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Go. I'm your host, Amber Hatfield. In today's episode, I will be picking up where I left off with Ray from Freedive Nomad. If you didn't hear last week's episode, head back and listen to that first. Otherwise, let's get into it. Let's talk about Taiwan and freediving and whether or not Taiwan is a great place for freediving. Is Taiwan one of the best places to be doing it?
One of the best places to be doing it. I think Nat Geo wrote an article calling, Taiwan sort of a mecca of freediving. It's certainly massive here compared to other countries. I think France and Italy probably have a stronger community, but they've been at it for many, many more decades than Taiwan has. But in the short period of time that freediving has, which is really only about 10 years,
right,
in Taiwan, it's quite big, and so quite a robust community, a lot of opportunities to train.
And so, are there any spots in Taiwan that are like really good for going freediving?
The island I live on, Taiwan. So October through April, amazing, absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The conditions are great, currents are low, the visibility is great, outside temperature is not too hot. The big peak tourist season is over. So yeah, come October to April.
So what kind of things can you see in Xiaoliosha if you dive there?
800 sea turtles. They're everywhere. You're guaranteed to see one if you go down there. Yeah, just like you can swim kind of alongside them, take some cool videos or photos. It's quite graceful how they just kind of like
fly almost.
Yeah, it's great. And it's also good, to give that experience to your students rather than, because you're so focused on just diving, we're not looking at anything. But, like sea turtle comes around, it's like, oh, cool. So,
yeah.
It really adds to the experience.
Yeah. I want to talk about safety because I think that's probably something that a lot of people think about if they think about freediving, that it's like a very maybe dangerous sport to do. Is it a safe sport to do?
The way I do it absolutely is safe. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think freediving gets a misconception that it's a super dangerous sport in the media. So, the most recent one being the Netflix documentary, The Deepest Breath.
I've not seen it.
Well, it ends in tragedy.
Okay.
Because what good documentary doesn't end in tragedy? But there are levels to freediving. There's a spectrum to freediving. The guys they were showcasing in The Deepest Breath were competitors who dive past 100 meters.
Wow, that sounds really, really deep to me.
Yeah, and these guys, they have no fear of death. You got to be able to just not fear it in order to get to that level. And that's not me.
Okay.
Maybe I'll get there someday, but that's not me. So they're the F1 drivers, right?
Right.
They are the F1 drivers. I am the driver's ed teacher that's teaching high school students, right? Teaching you how to drive down the suburban road.
Okay.
Right?
I like that analogy.
Do everything safely, looking both ways before we go through an intersection, safe distance between the car in front of you. That is the freediving that I teach, and safety is the most important. And let me explain how we teach diving to sort of like the deepest levels. Is that we have a round buoy, connected to the bottom of that buoy through a pulley system is a rope. And that rope has a heavy weight at the bottom of it. We call it a bottom weight, minimum 8 kilos. And we have a pulley that we can easily like get it deeper or pull without too much effort. The bottom weight up. You are attached to that rope through a lanyard quite similar to what would keep you attached to a surfboard, and that keeps you connected to your safety system. That's the safety system. So if there's a heavy current, you're not going to get blown away. I think going back on the safety misconception is a lot of untrained freedivers, I put that in air quotes. They're probably snorkelers that get classified as freedivers when they die, right? There are some very seemingly innocuous things that they do, which put them at great danger.
Okay.
One is hyperventilating. If you hyperventilate, you can hold your breath a lot longer, it seems, but what we learned about CO2 is that it gives you the signals to breathe, right? The urge to breathe. Hyperventilating does not increase the level of oxygen in your blood. What it actually is doing is putting your carbon dioxide levels to artificially low levels. And so your urge to breathe will be delayed. However, sometimes it happens after you black out. So it gives you a false sense of security.
Right.
Like, oh, right, I don't feel the urge to breathe. That means I have enough oxygen. No. It means your carbon dioxide is like stupendously low.
Okay.
And you'll black out without even feeling like you need to breathe. So a lot of people wear too much weights, lead weights around their belt, and that makes the most difficult part, where you have the lowest oxygen, even harder by having to fin even harder with too much weight.
Right.
Right. And so these very simple things that you'll learn on a freedive course, it makes it dramatically safer.
Right, yeah.
Or not diving with somebody, unless you have somebody to safety you, a buddy, a trained buddy who knows how to retrieve you if you black out and resuscitate you, which is quite simple if you know some of the principles around that, and you learn in a freedive course.
So are there any like specific main safety considerations that you always have to make sure you do before you go on a dive? Like, I need to have this thing with me, or something like that?
Well, you definitely bring a buoy out. Whether you're diving on the line, like I explained before, or you're just kind of freely diving, you need a like lightly colored buoy just to tell the boats around that you're around there, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
And also just kind of rest up on. You should monitor your health condition, be more aware of whether you're not feeling well or not. Yeah, even like I'll tell you how important it is to be 100% mentally and physically when you're diving, right? So there's like one of UK's top freedivers. He was on his last training day before going to World Championships in 2019. They dive in the afternoon. In the morning, he was kind of having this back and forth email, not nice, with a student or former student, right? Disagreement. He went to 80 meters training dive, which is a deep depth, not deep for him. I mean, it's an easy dive for him, right? Easy training dive for him. But he had a lung squeeze. He injured his lungs. He had decompression sickness and nearly died. And that was all because his head wasn't in the right place because of that email. So, yeah, I think freediving, you become quite aware of how these things mentally can impact your diving, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd love to talk about Freedive Nomad specifically, and what kind of courses you have there that you offer to people who want to learn to dive.
So Freedive Nomad was just sort of the name I came up with as I was flying to Indonesia to take my instructor certification, because I wanted to document it in an Instagram, whether just for whatever, we're in the social media age. At the time, my job, I felt like I was chained to the desk all day. I couldn't get off the desk because I was trading. Unless the markets were shut, I couldn't go to the bank. I couldn't go to a doctor's appointment. I had, 25 days of holiday a year, which was generous. And I really sort of admired the digital nomad lifestyle. Right. And I was hoping of the freedom just to go anywhere and work. Because I like slow travel, just plopping down in a city and just getting to know the local vibes, right? Not just hopping from tourist site to tourist site. Anywho, I wanted freediving to be sort of the conduit or the reason why I took trips and go around the world. And yeah, I've gone to like the Philippines twice to train and teach freediving. I'm going to Greece next month to teach how to freedive camp there.
Cool.
I went to Tonga to go to humpback whales and stuff. So yeah, it is a reason why I'm doing a lot of travel these days. So the type of courses I want to, have the biggest impact on my students as possible, whether that is to give them a great experience. That's very important for me. To give them the tools that they can take home with them to calm down their nervous system, to self-regulate, like if they have a stressful situation or need to prep for a meeting, that they can just sit down for 5 minutes and do some breath work. And whether they free dive ever again or not, they have these tools. Pure freediving wise, my courses are different because I have a limit of 2 students to 1 instructors, and stretch it out over 4 days. Most are like 3 days, and that makes a world of a difference. You get much more personalized attention. You get a lot more practice. You are learning a new sport with a lot more movement, new movement, while holding your breath. And so you know, just like any sport, you're going to get better at it. You're going to get proficient at it by more practice. And when you have less students in your course, you get more practice to gain that proficiency, right? And so that's where I really differentiate from other freediving courses. But on top of that, I add breath work, I add yoga, I add restorative yoga. I even can do sound healing with the Tibetan bowls, which is amazing. It's kind of like brain entrainment and getting your brain to these lower sort of relaxing brain frequencies. And that's what Tibetan bowls do. So like a 20-minute session of that, you're going to feel amazing.
Sorry, I think there's a mosquito in here and it keeps getting me.
So I want you to, be relaxed, you know, going through the challenges of a freedive course. I don't want to scare anybody, but learning freediving can be a challenge. It's not like a scuba course where 90% of the people, 99% of the people pass. It is challenging enough that when you pass it, you really should feel proud of yourself, because it is a difficult thing to hold your breath and to go down 12 meters, to hold your breath for a minute and a half. Right. So if you're looking for a challenge, this is it.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's this Japanese concept called misogi, and I think these guys do like this crazy ice bath every year, and sort of some people are repackaging that into doing something not super challenging, but really challenging once a year. Let that be a freedive course, because to have that gives you a lot of self-confidence that I can do this, right? I can go do something tough.
Yeah.
And coming away with, some modalities of how to deal with your stressful life, which I find most people do have.
Yeah. Right. And do you find that a lot of people don't pass?
4 days, let's say we're learning a new sport, and learning it, can you pick up tennis in 4 days? Really? Or basketball or whatever? You can, and I structure my course in a way to give your best chance of learning freediving. You know, that's the focus, learning freediving. Yeah. Not learning to pass a test, which is sort of how we get through life, right? And I have a much higher pass rate. Now, not to say if you don't pass over those 4 days, doesn't mean you can't pass. It may mean you need a few more days. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But we have some protocols we go over if you can't equalize, and you may have to come back a couple times. But also, my course is a little bit more expensive. You know, I think I'm not the cheapest, but I definitely am the best value. And if you think about, I'm giving your best chances of passing, that you're saving money actually, because if you don't pass a cheaper course, you have to spend more money to come down again and pay for like not only the transport and the accommodations, but the coaching necessary for that. So if you like value. But it's also a vibe. It's a vibe thing, right? I try to put my true self on social media because I'm kind of goofy, right? And that may not vibe with some people, and you know, I don't want people to go to my course and expect a super serious instructor. But you know, it's my belief that being authentic and being silly, which I am, and having fun. Because when you're having fun, you are relaxed. When you are relaxed, you freedive better. Right. So, let's not be so serious. Just holding your breath and diving into the water.
Awesome. Do you stay in touch with a lot of the students that you teach then?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. I love it. That's what I love about it, because when people come to my island, they're at their best self. One of my first students, we did the pool session here in Taipei, and he was kind of reserved and, you know, definitely wasn't relaxed. He comes to the island, he's ready to go, he's happy, he's got a big smile on his face. So the amazing thing about my job is I get people at their best, you know, and when we're both having an amazing time, we form a great connection. And I also appreciate that I'm meeting a huge breadth of different kinds of people, whether that's a chef, an Apache fighter pilot for the U.S. Army, but yeah, just a huge spectrum of people. And you learn a lot.
Awesome.
Artists, yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about or add that I haven't asked you about?
Going back to safety and the misconception. So one of the pieces of, I guess, written about freediving, I think it was Outdoor Magazine, maybe 7 years ago. They called freediving the second most dangerous adventure sport in the world. Number one being base jumping.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Do you not take base jumping lessons before jumping on a cliff and throwing your parachute? Would you do it without any lessons?
No.
Yes. So freediving looks very innocuous. So a lot of people will not pay for these lessons to basically teach you how to do it safely, right? And so I think that's unfair. It can be very safe if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, very dangerous. So one statistic I want to leave with your audience. When I signed up for my professional liability insurance after I got my instructor certification, for some reason, my premium was much higher than my classmates. And when I asked them, they're like, oh, you checked off scuba instructor. And so scuba instructor was like, I guess depending how you calculate it, either 35% or 50% more. Which means basically, so for insurance companies, they base their premiums on data. How many, students have they had and how many accidents have there been, right? Man, I hear about accidents all the time in scuba, not very much in freediving, right? And so I guess you could say that freediving is 35% safer than scuba. But I don't, you go scuba, nobody's going to be like, oh, be very careful. Scuba's very dangerous. It is dangerous.
Yeah.
The data about the professional liability insurance was from the largest dive insurance company in the world, or best one. So I am here to dispel this myth that freediving is dangerous. It is dangerous if you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
But you will know what you're doing if you take a course.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me. It was really nice to chat to you.
Thanks for inviting me over.
That's all for this week's episode of Let's Go. I hope you enjoyed learning more about freediving with Ray from Freedive Nomad, and I'll see you in another episode next week.